So today I'm going to show you how kids can use Soundtrap to make a podcast. Now I know it's mostly for creating music, but it's also actually a really nifty podcasting tool. So you'll notice that this is our, soundboard or whatever you want to call it. This is, where we create stuff. And if you notice in the middle, there's loops, patterns to make beats, instruments you can play. I'm not going to get into all that, although I think the loops are interesting because then kids can add little intros to your podcast. A podcast doesn't just start with someone talking. There's usually, some music or stuff that starts it off. So what I like to do for kids is I like to teach them to do their recording first and get that out of the way, and then go in and add some loops later. So we're going to go ahead and go over here to where it says add a new track. And when you do that, you can pick an instrument that you're going to play. We're just going to choose the voice and microphones. Now, I've made this mistake a few times. Check out over here where the reverb is set up high. You want to get that turned down or you'll have a super echoey voice when you're recording. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click recording. There's a little countdown and I'll just pretend like I'm a kid in 5th grade sharing a math strategy. Hey, welcome to Dan's weekly math podcast. I'm going to share some new learning from today in math class. We learned what's called the partial product strategy. It's where you look at numbers and you break them into tens and ones to make it easier to multiply. So let me tell you more about that. I'm going to go ahead and stop it there. You don't want to listen to me talk about partial product strategy all night. So this little track here, this is my recording. So if I click back over here on the top of the screen where the time is going, I can podcast. I'm going to share some new learning from play that, and it sounds pretty good. I can also make it shorter if I need to, and I could edit it with other things like auto-tune, but don't teach the kids about that. Let's add some music into it because this is a little boring. I'm going to click add new track, and I'm not going to play an instrument, but I'm going to go down here to where it says loop library. And the loops have lots of really cool items that you can play, so you can just click on the little play button to sample them. So that one sounds pretty good. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click and drag it over here. And now I kind of have my intro. This is really long, so I might try to trim it down a little bit. But for today's podcast, we'll just leave it like it is. So I don't want these two tracks on top of each other because we learned what's called the partial. That's hard to hear. This is just your intro music. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to drag my voice clip over to the side. So now I kind of have some layover. And then these little dots here, this is like your fader. So I can have it kind of fade out and then start my voice. So let's see how that sounds now. Hey, welcome to Dan's weekly math podcast. I'm going to share some new learning from today in math class. Awesome, that sounds really good. So before everything's finished, I'm going to click save. I'm just going to save that file. Then I'm going to go over to file and I'm going to export it. I like MP3 because I think that's easier to use. So it takes a second to mix, because it's got to render everything, especially if you have a really big project and all those different layers on it. So just give it a second to get it together. When it's ready, it says mix is ready for download up here. We should be able to click this little download button. So it's going to download it as an MP3 file, and then all kids need to do is upload it to their Google Drive, and they can share it with you, the teacher. And that's how you podcast with Soundtrap.